Hello, and welcome back on this Wednesday of Holy Week. As we move closer to Friday, we hope you're finding that these brief periods with your Northminster family are helping and drawing you a little bit deeper into the story. Today, Dr. Gaddy's character does not have a name, but he's no less important to the unfolding of the story. So I invite everyone to take a deep breath and prepare to hear today's story with fresh ears.
I'm not going to tell you my name. I don't want my name and identity associated with what I did earlier this week. Actually, I thought I would enjoy a lot of laughs doing the work that I had taken on for a few days, but that was not the case. To tell you the truth, I was miserable most of the time. I did no more than pose a few tough questions to an itinerant Nazarene who seemed to be a rabbi, hoping that I could confuse him with my carefully constructed interrogation, as well as provoke others to badger him with challenging questions as well. Here's what happened. Some of my friends had spoken to me about a guy from that little nowhere village called Nazareth. Evidently, he's been causing quite a stir in Jerusalem. Frankly, his comments about religion don't bother me. They don't bother me at all, like they do many others. My experience is that religious folks are always talking about somebody, frequently calling someone a heretic or condemning a person for not having sufficient moral strength to be tolerated in a synagogue or a temple. When several of my friends who hold high positions in the halls of government informed me that this guy is an insurrectionist, sowing seeds of discontent and quietly turning people against the state, when I heard that, I grew very interested in him. Now, I'm well aware that I live under the rule of an occupation government. I don't like that, but things seem to be going pretty well. In addition to my legal practice, I have a small but amazingly good booth in the bazaar that does really well in producing a profit that provides me with a better than most standard of living. So the last thing in the world that I need is for someone to stir up a revolt that could anger the government and bring down the heavy hand of the law on all of us. So, wanting to help avoid trouble and keep my money, I asked my buddies how I could help silence this itinerant troublemaker named Jesus. Now understand, I am a masterful debater, trained in how to ask the kind of questions that throw even very smart people off balance and often cause them to start doubting the truth of their own assertions. You could call me a grand inquisitor, and nobody who knows me would disagree with that. Well, my worried colleagues said that my gift of inquisitiveness could really be helpful in this growing crisis. They want to catch Jesus off guard and document him telling a lie or offending devotees of Judaism And all they need is one solid anecdote that can be used as public proof of the propaganda that this Jesus is perpetrating. So I told my friends that I am the man who can make this happen for them, and I really thought I could. All of us ask questions for a variety of reasons. Sometimes we're really interested in receiving helpful information. At other times, we ask questions primarily to impress people with our wisdom. At still other times, we ask questions to start an argument that will allow us to voice resentment and justify condemnation. Occasionally, we string together a series of questions for the singular purpose of making someone we don't like look bad, appear foolish, confused, embarrassed, and maybe even stupid. I'm good at all of that. And that's why my motivation for interrogating Jesus and helping my friends prove Jesus a fraud, catch him in a lie, and expose his lack of religious authenticity, I can do that. Now, having said that, should go right ahead and tell you right up front that Jesus turned out to be much a greater challenge than I expected. Quickly, I found him smart beyond comprehension, wise beyond measure, sharp as a knife, and aggravatingly civic as well as unnerving kind. When we began talking, as soon as we began talking, immediately I knew that I had met my match. You can't imagine how much it bothers me to make that confession to you. Faking confidence, I kept at my task thinking that one question alone would be sufficient to get Jesus' neck into a noose. I connected a question filled with traps related to both religion and politics. If I did not get Jesus in trouble one way, I was confident that I could accomplish my task another way. I would lead with my strength. Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor? I posed that question to Jesus once I was sure that crowds of people were listening and looking on to the interchange. And what a terrific question I had. I thought to myself as the interrogation began, look, I imagine you're impressed when I say that. If Jesus answers yes, religious people will be furious at his endorsement of Rome. And if he says no, representatives of the government can charge him with disloyalty to the state and brand him as a propagandist for insurrection. So you see, I'll get him either way. Well, Jesus responded to my inquiry calmly and confidently, like a genius. He answered my question honestly while avoiding all that he wanted to say without striking up any controversy. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, Jesus said, and give to God what belongs to God. I could feel my face turning red. The man from Nazareth had outsmarted me. His integrity was without a blemish. Though my mind was racing through inflammatory political questions that could catch Jesus in a rhetorical trap, I realized that I was off to a bad start. Aware that religious is not something I think about. Religion is not my forte, and this man may be a rabbi. I had to try to set in motion a problematic conversation with him about religion. So here again, I made a mistake. I posed a question related to the correct interpretation of an important scripture passage. I should have known that Jesus knew the Torah far better than I did. For a moment, I was greatly relieved when my question to Jesus prompted some people around me asking questions themselves, and I thought that was going to get me out of trouble. Now, I don't know anything about the doctrine of resurrection, but an articulate Sadducee who didn't believe in resurrection asked Jesus a terribly complicated question about what he called levirate marriage and its implications related to resurrection. Now, in Judaism, as I understand it, a brother has a responsibility to marry his deceased brother's widow if she has had no children, and so as to make it possible for her to birth a child with him as the father. This Sadducee was really something. He increased the difficulty of his question to Jesus by asking what would happen if the woman was connected to 7 brothers, 7 who had this responsibility. Look, it was already lost in the discussion for me, but I acted like I knew precisely what was happening. I understood enough of the conversation to know that the religious guy had backed Jesus into a corner. And in the first place, historically and theologically, debates about whether or not there would be a resurrection has been argued about by all kinds of religions all around the world. Now, Jesus would have to state his position on this controversial subject, address what happens when a widow has several brothers-in-law, and in so doing, Jesus would anger a whole lot of people. Now, add to that already trying question about resurrection, an inquiry about to whom a man or a woman who had been married to 2 different people in life. The kicker was, who would the widow be married to in the resurrection? There. Jesus was in an inescapable bind. His answer to this question would stir an even more volatile debate than the first question. And I had to admit to myself that this was a far better trap to make for Jesus, far better than I ever could have put together. Now, maybe all of you know how you would respond to this situation with satisfactorily resolution. But as smart as I am, I did not see a way that Jesus could handle this dilemma without making almost everybody critical of his solution. That's why my jaw dropped again when Jesus succinctly and straightforwardly made the questioner look like he neither knew the scriptures nor a satisfactory theology of resurrection. Jesus simply observed that the scriptures indicate that in the resurrection there is no marriage. My goodness. Then somebody else in the gathered crowd stepped up and asked Jesus about the sanctity of the temple and the furor that could erupt if the temple was threatened. Rumors that Jesus was going to destroy the temple had upset a lot of people. Maybe this would be it. But no, Jesus made clear that he had been speaking about the temple of the body, not the building that stood on the Temple Mount. Well, I just have to tell you, that's how the thing went all day. Right in front of my colleagues, my mission failed to ask Jesus a question that he couldn't answer with an error, or people would see him as a liar. I was a failure of gargantuan proportions, and believe me, I've thought a lot about what happened. But this man, Jesus, has it all together. Mind, body, spirit. He has no interest in arguing. His focus is on demonstrable truth. His answer to a question about the greatest commandment in the Hebrew Scriptures, another question meant to hurt him, trick him, lodged in my mind. Without hesitation, Jesus spoke of loving God as the Shema mandates, and also of loving our neighbors with no exceptions related to their identity, racial or religious. I've always liked a religion in which it is no more a sin to think than it is to love. To my surprise, Jesus thinks that way also. The fact is that Jesus of Nazareth made more sense to me than anyone I had ever met. He would have been an excellent politician as well as an influential rabbi. Later in the week, Jesus was charged with treason, insurrection, and he was going to be crucified for that crime. I must confess that every time I think of Jesus being framed and unduly charged, I grieve. I grieve knowing that instead of stepping up to help him as a conscientious lawyer, I was trying my best to contribute to his demise. This man understands religion, and he understands government. And he sees clearly the danger of entanglement between the two and the way in which each institution should complement the other, but be separate from each other. I have no doubt that Jesus' soul is devoted to God, as is his mind. If Jesus had remained alive, both my head and my heart tell me that I would have to follow him. This is my prayer. Holy God, teach us when to ask questions and when to listen for truth that is too big to be known only as a response to what we ask. Grant us the grace of silence, that we may know the power of education and the beauty of revelation. We thank you for the nourishment of food, fellowship, meditation, and study that can teach each of us how to love you and to follow Jesus with our heads and with our hearts. Amen.